Hello, and welcome. Thanks for joining Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap podcast. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. And as a life and career coach for women, my vision is to create resources to help women navigate their career and life challenges with more ease and grace, and to know that they're not alone. So each weekly conversation I have with an inspiring woman is intended to help women around the world be more confident, resilient, and brave as they approach their lives and careers. So if something strikes a chord with you as we have this conversation today, please check out the comments or the show notes below for ways to connect with my guest and me. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt betrayed? Has your trust or your confidence been violated? And do you find it hard to trust again? These may be things that happen and you maybe sweep them under the rug and just try to move on. But my next guest likes to challenge people with this question. Are you healed or hardened? I love that question. In this episode, we're going to talk about betrayal. And many might think that it would only affect us personally, but my guest is going to talk to us about how unhealed betrayal can impact our careers and business. Dr. Debi Silber is the founder of Post Betrayal Transformation Institute and a holistic psychologist. She's a health, mindset, and personal development expert, an international best-selling author, and a TEDx speaker. Her recent Ph.D. study on how we experience betrayal made 3 groundbreaking discoveries. And those change how long it takes us to heal from it. I'm really excited about having this conversation. And we're going to talk about what she learned from her research, how unresolved betrayal can affect us at work, and so much more. Welcome, Dr. Debi.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation.
I am too, and I'm going to get this right in just a second. There we go, side by side. There we go. I just can't wait to get deep into this subject. So, Dr. Debi, let's start with just a little bit of backstory. Why is the study of betrayal so important to you?
You know, I don't think anybody says, oh, I think I want to study betrayal because it's just a great topic. You study it because you have to. It's actually my 30th year in business. I was in health and then mindset and then personal development. And then I had a really painful betrayal from my family. Thought I did everything I needed to do to heal. A few years later, it happened again. This time it was my husband. Shocked, blindsided, devastated. Anybody who's been through it, you know, life as you've known it is no longer. And so I got him out of the house, looked at the 2 experiences and thought, okay, well, what's similar to these 2? Of course, me, but what else? And I realized, boundaries were always getting crossed. I never took my own needs seriously. And I'm one of those believers that if nothing changes, nothing changes. So here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. I was 50. And I was like, that's it, going back for a PhD. I didn't know how I was going to manage the time, how I was going to pay for it, but I was just determined. And it was in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential, because I was changing so much. I didn't quite understand what was happening. He was too, on his own, wasn't ready to look at that. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? And that study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my business, my family, my life.
Okay, that's amazing, and thank you for sharing that story. And it's so many people have stories like that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the research. Tell us, what are those 3 discoveries you've made?
Originally I was studying betrayal and post-traumatic growth. And for those who aren't familiar with that, that's like the upside of trauma, how any crisis, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster, leaves you with a new awareness, insight, perspective that you didn't have. Maybe you lose someone you love, you realize life is short, that sort of thing. But I'd been through death of a loved one and I'd been through disease. But betrayal felt very different for me. I didn't want to assume it was the same for all my study participants. So I asked them, if you've been through other crises besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? Unanimously, they said, oh my gosh, it's so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the whole self is shattered and has to be rebuilt. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust, they're all destroyed and they all have to be rebuilt. So it didn't quite qualify as post-traumatic growth. It was like, yeah, you need to rebuild your life, but you also need to rebuild yourself. So I coined a new term, Post Betrayal Transformation, PBT. And that's the complete and total rebuild of your life and yourself after an experience with betrayal. So that was the first discovery. Want me to go on to the second, or you have a question about that one?
No, please do. I mean, this is just so loaded with good stuff.
Yeah. So the second discovery was that there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's known as post-betrayal syndrome. A few things about that. We've had about 60,000 people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. The first thing is, we've all heard time heals all wounds. I have the proof. When it comes to betrayal, that's simply not true. There's a question that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? Question on the quiz. And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. My betrayal happened 40 years ago. I can still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 15 years ago. I feel gutted. So we know we cannot count on time to heal it. And in fact, we can spot an unhealed betrayal a mile away. But every so often I pull the stats from the quiz to see where people land. Would that be helpful if I share some?
Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay, so now imagine men, women, every age group, just about every country is represented. So now 60,000 or so people. 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hyper vigilant, and that's exhausting. 94% deal with painful triggers. These are the most common physical symptoms. Ready? 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. 63% have extreme fatigue. So you could sleep all night, wake up, you're exhausted. That's how you know your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. Maybe in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you're using food for comfort. 45% have digestive issues, and that can be anything from Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. The most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed, 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% are unable to focus, 64% are in shock, and 62% can't concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate, you have a gut issue, you're exhausted, you still have to work. You still have to raise your kids or do all those other obligations you have. That's not even the emotional ones. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. Real common to bounce back and forth between those two emotions. 82% feel hurt. 80% have anxiety. 79% are stressed. Just a few more. Here's why I wrote the book, Trust Again. 84% have an inability to trust. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. And I'm going to share with you one thing that, to me, as staggering as these numbers are, this is what makes it so much worse. The numbers I just shared, and you heard, I didn't read any 20%, 30%. I mean, these are high. These statistics aren't necessarily from something that happened recently. This can be from something that happened decades ago. So imagine your high school girlfriend or boyfriend, your parent, something when you were a kid. Here you are having this gut issue, this anxiety, this sadness. That person may not know, care, or even remember. And look at what we're carrying all these years.
Wow. You're right. Those statistics are staggering. You went through them so fast. I started writing some down, but I couldn't keep up with you. But the numbers and the high percentages are just unbelievable to me. 78% revisit their betrayal after long periods of time. And you just said very often the betrayal happened years ago, sometimes decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
And 94% are triggered today to remember it, to revisit it. And the can't trust is that overarching complication of life, right? If you can't trust because of something that happened, some betrayal that happened.
Well, think about it. Something is like trust. Trust is foundational.
It is.
So the most natural thing that happens is you don't trust the person who betrayed you. And then you say, well, if I can't trust, that person, well, first of all, where was I? How did I not see? How did I not know? So if I don't trust the person I trusted the most and I can't trust myself, how in the world can I trust in anything or anyone? And people think, well, can trust be repaired? I say no. Can it be rebuilt? Yes, but it's a tough process.
Well, that's an interesting distinction. It can't be repaired, but it can be rebuilt.
Yes.
Talk about that just for a second.
Sure. I'll give you an analogy that completely explains this. I look at trust like a brick wall. The only way I know of a brick wall being built is brick by brick by brick, right? Same thing here. Every opportunity someone has to show that they're trustworthy, that's one brick in that brick wall. And that's why it takes time to build.
Right.
Now think about it. One earth-shattering moment or series of moments, the person who built the brick wall can tear the whole thing down. Now you can look at the rubble of bricks and say, well, I don't have the least bit of interest in watching that thing get rebuilt. Totally fine. You walk away. However, if you are willing to watch the brick wall be rebuilt, for the person who's been betrayed, the person whose trust has been shattered, that would be your job if you choose. The other person has to be a really good bricklayer. And it goes up the same way it went up the first time. Every opportunity they have to show that they're trustworthy, that's one brick in that brick wall. But here's what I see, which to me is so tragic. Very often, the person who shattered the brick wall doesn't really have much of an interest in building it. So the person who's brokenhearted, whose trust has been shattered, says, well, I'll build it. No, it doesn't work that way. That's why they don't feel safe. That's why they don't feel valued. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It does. It's a great analogy. I'm envisioning it as you're talking about the brick by brick, the time it takes to build that trust, and repairing it takes two, right? And very often.
You're so right. And here's the other thing too. There were 3 groups in our study, in the study, who did not heal. And I'd love to get to the third discovery, but there are 3 groups in the study who didn't heal. And one group was they just refused to accept their betrayal. They had their story. They were sticking with it. That was it. The second group, this was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting. They went to the doctor who put them on, let's say, a mood stabilizer or anti-anxiety medication, or they started drinking or emotionally eating, numbing out in front of the TV. It may have made the day a bit easier to get through, not without a price. They didn't heal. The third group, this was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences. Now, whether it was out of financial fear, not wanting to break up a family, religious reasons, that was a big one. Fear of change, of the unknown, they just tried to put it behind them. I saw 2 things with this group. The first was a further deterioration of the relationship. The second thing was this group by far was the most physically sick. Your broken heart. Yeah, your broken heart can't handle it.
Just harboring it, holding it in.
Exactly.
Keeping it under the rug, like I said before.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But they were so afraid of that death and destruction of the old, but that's the only way you rebirth the new. And here's the thing, rebuilding is always a choice. Whether you rebuild yourself and move on, and that's what I did with my family. It simply wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up, brand spanking new with the person who hurt you. That's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as 2 completely transformed people, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids as our bridal party. Never in a billion years would I have done anything like that if I wasn't totally different, and for sure if he wasn't either. But betrayal
Right.
will show
Right.
you who someone truly is. It also has the opportunity to wake them up to who they temporarily became.
That's a great example of your personal example of not repairing, but rebuilding from the ground up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Something
All right.
totally.
There's a third. This will get to the third one.
Okay, this for me was the most exciting out of all of the discoveries. And what we learned was while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean symptoms of post betrayal syndrome, like I just shared, to that whole healed, rebuilt place of post betrayal transformation, we're going to go through 5 now proven predictable stages. What's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every one of those stages. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next, which means healing is entirely predictable. And I'm happy to share the 5 stages if you'd like.
Yeah, that's this is what you call from betrayal to breakthrough, I think, right?
Exactly.
All
Exactly.
right. So yes, please share the 5 stages.
Okay, so it's what our certified coaches are all certified in. It's what we do within the PBT Institute. I'm going to share them right here, a distilled version. So stage 1 is like a setup stage, and this is before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of the table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody, me too, was a real heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing, and kind of neglecting or not really prioritizing the emotional and the spiritual, the feeling and being. Now, that's not to say if you're busy thinking and doing, you'll be betrayed, but that was the profile we saw. Anyway, if a table only has 2 legs, easy for that table to topple over, and that's us. Stage 2, by far the scariest of all of the stages, and this is shock, trauma, D-Day, Discovery Day, and it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. Right here, you've ignited the stress response. You're headed for every single stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around the information you just learned. This makes no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model, the rules that prevent chaos, that govern you. Don't go there, trust this person. These are the rules. This is how life works. And in one earth shattering moment, all of the rules have been destroyed. The bottom has bottomed out, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. This is terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of whatever you could to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? How do I feed my kids? Here's the trap, though. Stage 3, by far, is the most common place to get stuck. And in fact, those statistics I read are people stuck in stage 2 or 3. Here's what happens. This is why we get stuck here. Once we figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where we just came from, we think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know that, we start planting roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know. And then 4 things happen. The first thing is we start getting all these small self benefits. You get to be right. You get someone to blame. You get a target for your anger. You get sympathy from everyone you tell your story to. You don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again, right? Should I trust you? Can I trust you? I forget. I won't trust anybody. So you plant deeper roots. You're not supposed to, but you don't know that. Now, because this is where you are longer than you should be, the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you're not all that great. Maybe you deserved it. Things like that. So you plant deeper roots. Now, because this is where you are and this is the energy you have, well, this is the energy you're putting out. And like energy attracts like energy. So now you're calling situations and circumstances and relationships towards you to confirm, yep, this is where you belong. The misery loves company crowd, they come around now too. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but you don't know there's a stage 4 or a stage 5, right here, you resign yourself. You're like, this stinks, but I better find a way to be okay with this. So right here is where you start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy, reckless behavior, anything to numb, avoid, and distract yourself from what's so painful to feel or face. So think about it. You do it for a day a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I'm not kidding. I can see someone 20 years out and say that emotional eating you're doing, or that numbing in front of the TV, or that drinking you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I'm crazy. And they would say, well, that happened 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm just sitting here nodding my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that with some of my clients as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
they're just so tragically stuck. So that's why I wrote From Hardened to Healed. It's just for those in stage 3, because if you've bothered to go through your painful experience, you owe it to yourself to transform, which is waiting for you in stages 4 and 5. You want me to continue? You want me to
tell
finish?
us about those. Yeah. We got to
Okay.
find our way out of this now.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I don't want to leave you in there. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to let go of the small self benefits, grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo my experience, but I control what I do with it. And when you make that decision, you start turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stop the massive damage you'd been creating in stages 2 and stage 3. What's interesting about stage 4 is also, I always use the example, if you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, whatever, all your stuff's not there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's going to be okay. That's sort of the feeling that goes along with stage 4. But also think about it. If you were to move, you don't necessarily take everything with you. You don't take the things that don't represent who you want to be once you're in that new space. And what I found was, if your friends weren't there for you, right here, you've outgrown them. And people say to me all the time, what the heck? I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come. Very common to change our friendships in this stage. Ways to handle all of it, but for now, just know that it's coming. Anyway, when you settle into this new space, mentally, you make it okay, you make it home. You move into the 5th most beautiful stage, and this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal, self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise, things like that. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now you do. You were surviving. Your mind is healing. You're making new rules. You're making new boundaries based on the road you just traveled. And you have a new worldview based on all you see so clearly now. And the 4 legs of the table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Wow, jam-packed, great stuff. Debi, this is amazing work that you've done. I really appreciate your sharing it with us. And it's a bit of a fire hose, I know, for everybody, but we're going to give you ways to get in touch with Debi when we're done here, so that you can maybe hear it a little more slowly.
Sorry, I want to give you so much.
I know, and there's so much to get from you. But let me ask you a question about those of us who have been betrayed, maybe are stuck in stage 3. How do we know that we haven't healed, that we've actually hardened? How do we know that?
These are classic ways we see an unhealed betrayal. Okay, I'll see it in health and work and relationships, for example. In relationships, I'll see it in one of 2 ways. The first way is a repeat betrayal. The face has changed, but it's the same thing. And people say all the time, what the heck? I keep going from partner to partner to partner, friend to friend to friend, boss to boss to boss. Is it me? Yes, it is. Not in that it's your fault, in that it's your opportunity. There's a profound lesson needing to be learned. You are lovable, worthy, and deserving. You need better boundaries in place, whatever that lesson is. Until and unless you get that, you will have opportunities in the form of people to teach you. So that's the first way. So you know you're stuck in stage 3 if you have repeat betrayals. The second way we see it is the big wall goes up. We're like, nope, been there, done that, not doing that again. And we think that's coming from a place of strength. It's not. It's coming from fear. We were so heartbroken that we would rather close ourselves off to everybody than take that chance and risk that level of vulnerability and that level of pain again. That's not healed. That's hardened. We see it in health. People go to the most well-meaning doctors, coaches, healers, therapists, right? To manage a stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. At the root of it is an unhealed betrayal. Like, for example, one of those stats was 45% of everybody betrayed has a gut issue. You could go to the best gut doctor on the planet, right? But if they don't know how to help you through a betrayal, you're hacking away at the leaves. You're not getting to the root. And think of it in business too. This is how we see it in business. You want that razor promotion, you deserve it, but your confidence was shattered. So you don't have the confidence to ask, and you're bitter and resentful instead. Or you want to be a team player, collaborative partner, but the person you trusted the most proved untrustworthy. How do you trust that boss, that coworker, that partner? You see, it shows up everywhere.
Yeah. The one that hit home with me, I've seen them all. The one that hit home with me, because it's what I experienced for a long time, is putting up that wall and thinking I was strong and really just hiding behind it. And I love that you said, that's not strength, it's fear. It's being afraid. And that's what I learned from healing from my betrayal, I hunkered down.
Sure. And it's protective.
It
That's
feels
exactly what it
safe.
is. Right.
Yeah.
But you know what it's like? It's like, let's say you love cooking and you burn yourself on the stove and you say, that's it, I'm never cooking again. That's not fair to you, right? Will you wear a glove and approach the stove carefully and learn how to manage it? Of course. But closing yourself off to intimacy and those and relationships, that's what life's about.
Yeah.
And you deserve to learn how to heal from that so you can enjoy the deep connections that make life meaningful.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Here's the big question. After having our trust betrayed in whatever way that was for us, how can we learn to trust again?
Yeah. It is definitely a process. Do I have a few minutes to teach you the 4-step trust rebuilding process?
Yeah, do.
Okay. Here, this is again fire hose coming at you, but I just I want to give this to you. So if someone can rewatch this and slow down the speed, it's worth it. Okay. Here's the thing. This is the reason why we never feel safe and we are hesitant to trust, because there are 4 stages, 4 levels we need to go through, and we skip 1, 2, and 3 and want to go right to 4. I'm going to share it with you, and you're going to see exactly why this makes so much sense. Ready? The first step is, because trust is so foundational, it needs to be rebuilt at the level of foundation. So we need to start with the most basic thing, because we question everything, including ourselves, including our sanity. So you need to question things like, will the sun rise? I mean, something as basic as you can come up with. And you're like, I don't even know. I'm not sure. Well, go out every morning, take a look. Is it there? Yeah. Can you believe it? I don't know. You keep doing that until you do, because that's going to be the foundation upon which you stand. Once you get that, you're like, okay, I can trust that. I can trust that the sun will rise every day. I can trust that my coffee will be hot, whatever it is, right? When you can trust in that basic foundational thing, only then you move to the next level. And the next level is you need to strengthen your wise inner guide, your intuition. We turn that down. Our gut is like 10,000 times more perceptive than our mind, but we get that gut feeling and we don't trust it. We let our ego mind run the show. It's like, here's this wise inner guide, and we listen to like a bratty 10-year-old, So we need to learn how to do that. Well, how do you do that? Everything needs to be congruent. When the thoughts, the behaviors, the mannerisms, the body language, when everything is aligned, you can trust it. When something's off, like, you ever see somebody where the face is smiling, but the eyes aren't, not like a weird, creepy Botox thing, but like something's off, trust that, believe it. You need to trust in what your body's telling you, when something feels safe and when something doesn't feel safe. And you're going to use that as your guide. And as you do, you'll sort of feel like these invisible bodyguards, like sort of supporting you. When you learn how to trust in yourself, in that wise inner guide, in your intuition, in your gut instinct, only then You move on to the next level of that. And now you need to learn to trust in yourself again, because self-trust is shattered. And how do you do that? You give yourself little tasks and then you do them. I'm going to go to the gym today, and then you do. I'm going to drink that glass of water, and then you do. I will not call my ex, and then you don't. Whatever it is. And what you're learning is, and what you're retraining yourself, or maybe training yourself for the first time in, is if I say something, I mean it. My word is law. And I can trust in my word and in myself. So think about it. You have now a new foundation upon which to stand. You trust your gut. You trust yourself. From that space, you slowly, cautiously, and carefully trust in others. But do you see how we don't even bother with the first three. We just go right to wanting to trust in others again. And that's why it falls flat. Does that make sense?
Oh, perfect sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect sense. You're so right. It's all of this starts with the foundation, right? And if we try to skip over that, if we try to skip building that foundation, then it's all on shaky ground. And it's really easy for another betrayal to happen because we haven't fortified ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes such good sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why those repeat betrayals keep happening. And that's
Yeah.
why people think, well, the only solution is another relationship. No. I'll show you something with my hands. You'll never forget
Another
this.
relationship with ourselves, maybe, but
And
not
that's
with
the only
someone
one.
else, right?
That is the one, the priority. Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're in a relationship and there's been a betrayal, right? Here you are, and you're so devastated and so hurt and so shocked, and you just want that pain to go away. So you think the solution is this person or someone similar right here. You just want that pain to go away. But this is why we keep having repeat betrayals, because this is the only place where, we're spending our time. When after a betrayal, what you need to do is start doing this. You do the work to improve physically, mentally, and emotionally. Now watch what happens. If we are so committed to the person here, and then we start doing the work, what we do is we start sabotaging ourselves because we don't want to outgrow them, you see? But we like it here. So then we get frustrated. We're like, well, why can't they do this? Because they're not ready. So what happens is we do this, but we're so committed to them. And then eventually you get this, right? Where you're like, ooh, what happened to you? And they're like, what's going on with you? So what you need to do is do the work to get here. Now, a few things may happen. This person may say, that's the end of that. And you're just not interested in them. You go your own way. This person may say, I better step up my game to meet the strength of this person. And you meet up here, right? Or this can't help but show up because this is where you live. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Then you start looking when you can't bring this one, when this one doesn't meet you, then this one goes away.
Exactly.
And someone else comes in and meets you here or here.
Right? Because this is where you are.
Up levels you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. This is such great stuff, Debbie, but we got to wrap this up. So I want to get to the last thing we do on every single episode is have my guests share some practical tips and strategies, which is why we call the show Tips for the Transition. So let's get to, I know you probably have oodles of them. Your top 3 tips.
My top 3 tips, I would say, can I wrap it up with a series of questions? Because this is going to be so helpful for everybody.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. I love questions.
Great. Here's my tip. And it's to know if you're numbing, avoiding, distracted, because if you are, you will stay forever in stage 3. So you may want to write this down. That's my way of saying write this down. Ready? Am I numbing, avoiding, distracting? If so, how? Call yourself on it. Do you go into the kitchen, at the least bit hungry, and you find yourself in the cabinets? Do you go into your room, you turn on the TV to drown out the sound of your own thoughts? Call yourself on it. The second question, what am I pretending not to see? Am I pretending not to see I hate my job? Am I pretending not to see that health issue that needs my attention? Am I pretending not to see, this relationship is really in trouble? The third question, what's life going to look like in 5 to 10 years if I do nothing? Play out exactly what you're doing now, 5 to 10 years. What does that job issue look like? What does that health issue look like? What does that relationship issue look like? And the last question, the fourth question, what could life look like in 5 to 10 years if I change now? I'm not saying it's easy. Transformation begins when you tell yourself the truth.
Whoa, that's a powerful statement. Transformation begins when you tell yourself the truth. So what was coming up for me as I was listening to those questions, powerful questions, was starting with the betrayal itself, admitting that you were betrayed.
Yes.
Starting with the acknowledgement, the awareness. Yeah, because I know so many. I did it for a long time myself. You know, I told you about hunkering down and sitting behind that wall. It took a while before I was brave enough to actually admit the betrayal and then figure out what to do about it. Oh, Debi, this is, thank you so much. This has been such a great 35 minutes, 36 minutes of chock full great stuff. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
I
so much.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, I want to share with people how they can get in touch with you. The one best way, and then we'll share other ways with them in the show notes. So, tell us, speak to us, your best way.
Yeah. They can always go to the PBT Institute. The PBT is in Post Betrayal Transformation Institute. And if you want to know what stage you're in, take the Healed or Hardened quiz. And they can find that at healedorhardenedquiz.com.
Perfect. And as I said, all of those links will be in the show notes for everyone. So I want to thank you again, Debi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I
Thanks
want to
for the
thank
opportunity.
everyone. And I want to thank everyone for watching and listening. I appreciate that you're a part of our community. And if you enjoyed this episode, replay it, get the real golden nuggets out of it from Debi. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a comment or a review. And if where you're watching or listening allows for star ratings, give us a star rating and let us know how you feel about it. As I said at the top of the show, and I've repeated, I love creating and sharing resources with women. So if something in this episode resonates, take a look below, get a fresh perspective, continue the conversation with me and with Debi. You can join me on my private Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap. The link for that is below, and we can continue this conversation. And Debi has some ways for you to stay in touch with her and learn more about the betrayal transformation. So let's meet again here next Wednesday, same time, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Till next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, turning transition into triumph.